my name is Max Gail, and this is my bonus daughter. She called me your bonus dad.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
When you were 15 and pregnant at Sundance at the DU University.
Yeah.
And I met your mom and met you, and and I had this, it awakened in me my sort of buried knowledge, that I had a daughter somewhere out in the world that I fathered and had been given up for adoption, and I hadn't had much to, or asked for much to say about any of that. She was out there about your age. She's 2 years younger, right? That was maybe a year. But anyway, and we became friends, and I saw you as a really bright, beautiful, intelligent, thinking, pregnant 15-year-old,
I was run away, and I was out on the street, and had gotten pregnant, and my mother just kind of found me and collected me up and took me to this Indian gathering that we had been to these things before, and I met Max. And being here at his place in Malibu, and he really took care of me during the time that I was pregnant. I stayed there at the house for a while and spent time there, and it was for me life changing, because at that point of my life, like we were talking about earlier, there had never been an adult that asked me about my opinion or what I thought or anything like that. So I remember the first time that you said that we were driving in your silver van, and you were telling me something that was adult talk, and he told me this whole thing, and then he turned around and he said, "What do you think about that?" And I was just like, "You mean me? You want to know what I think?" And it was life-changing for me to have somebody ask my opinion, and see, I did have a lot of ideas, and he didn't ever laugh at them or say they were silly or stupid or don't talk, he didn't ever do that, and it was important for me. It made me feel like I was, had something to offer, and it did impact my life.
That's cool.
So.
But you did. That's not wrong.
Well, I didn't know, but I didn't know that I had it. I didn't know that there was anything important about me, but he made me feel like there was. So, and it's taken me.
I saw that there was.
And it's taken me till about the last 2 or 3 years to maybe understand that maybe there is something that I can do. Last 3 years in the projects I've been working on, I've kind of been reaching back to that time and thinking about all those people that were around and coming and saying, they're working on this project or going to this cause or whatever, and I couldn't really understand it a whole bunch then, and I remember coming to him when I was maybe in my 30s, and I told him that I was afraid that I was going to be an activist. and that I would never amount to anything because I couldn't really, I was being torn into these worlds where, what did that mean? Was anything really getting accomplished for all of those travels and experiences, the great stories, and wonderful having these people coming out and playing music and all the electricity that was going on at the time? But for me, I was having a hard time understanding if they ever really were accomplishing anything. But there.
Nailed it, son.
So, what was the value of it all, except for, you know?
Well, it was one of the final questions that we talked about, really, and I think that being present, supporting Indians on one level, being non-Indian, was part of our role, and maybe that was the presence. The movies, you know, maybe helped share a little of what was it all about, but none of them seemed transformative that really took off or anything.
Well, it seemed like when the tools were just showing up, videotape, just, you know, portable videos just showing up, then that's how it brought us together. But it seemed like, because there certainly was the news, you know, and there was this sort of world out there, you know, that when things would break up into it, that, you know, like the 60s in San Francisco, or the American Indian movement, or, you know, the No Nukes movement, what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was involved in television, network television, you know, that was, I mean, there was certainly something about all that was part of the world we all lived in. And then when it seemed like, wow, you could shoot film before and stuff with the first video cameras, where you could see it right away, and the tape was cheap, and it seemed like there was a chance for this, you know, story to tell us. It seemed to, you know, tape it. Let's figure out some way to connect this up. So there's that element running through it, and I think, you know, especially personally, because there I was, you know, I had my mother out there, and I was a part of something, and a lot of the Indian movement was a chance to connect that public celebrity part of it to something more grounded. Mm-hmm. But for me, also came out of my own personal. You know, it was a time, personally, like when I was in New York doing Cuckoo's Nest, John Belushi was doing a play called Lemmings down the street. John and Chevy Chase and some other people were doing this kind of spoof of Woodstock called Lemmings. Mm-hmm. And then I got Barney Miller, and then those guys got, you know, Saturday Night Live came. It was way hipper. And John was a bigger kind of talent, or his commitment to theater was kind of that guy faking death and dumb in a mental institution and a stage play, so I didn't have to act it out in real life. You know, that was kind of what it was for me. But connecting with Indian movement, also connecting with the sweat in a spiritual way, and with people that really had an understanding that I was looking for, having kind of had my education in economics and stuff, and so there's something really missing in this picture here. Mm-hmm. And so finding Indian people, some with PhDs and some that graduated from high school, you know, but everybody seemed to have a way of looking at the world, and the kind of the ecology, the economy thing. It's all one thing. It wasn't just in the little narrow communism versus capitalism.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of my world, and then being up there at Sundance and meeting you in that context, those things that were transpiring, you know, that then folded into when you and I met, Todd. I think in that context, you were watching all of that, and the sort of role of actor-activist was forming. But, you know, some years later, actually, through my friend Jim Liu, I was connected to a guy named Paulo Freire, who was a Brazilian thinker and social philosopher and economist and stuff, you know, that had sort of grown up in the academia and middle class of Brazil, and then they had one of their depressions, and his family became impoverished, and he began to get an understanding of what that was all about. And he wrote a book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. You know, the teaching, which was, it isn't about, you know, pushing the knowledge into the empty, you know, the pouring the knowledge into the empty vessel of the oppressed people. That oppression dehumanizes everybody, and it's not that the oppressor and the oppressed have the equivalent experience, you know, but everybody's dehumanized. And so what's needed is transformation. And as you talk about these three worldviews, there's confirmation. It's a dog-eat-dog world. You just got to eat or get eaten.
Yeah.
Then there's the reformation, which kind of says there's good guys and bad guys, and the good guys have to take over from the bad guys. But history shows then they act just like the bad guys they took over from. No, wait, sort of, it's a systemic problem kind of idea, you know. And then the transformation, which is that everything changes, which is the one that's in harmony with the universe, because everything is always changing. And then he would use that to look at people's language that they were using. You know, so it's not that Louis Farrakhan is wrong or right. He uses a lot of reformational language. You know, sometimes he's very right and very wrong in the same paragraph or the same sentence. You know, and then Freire said, for transformation, you need action and reflection. And if you only have reflection, then it's mere verbalism. It's just talk. For talk's sake kind of thing. But if you only have action, then it's mere activism, just action for action's sake. And that really helped me. That was a few years after Barney Miller and all that was, you know, during the time after Willie had died and I was a single mom during that time. But it really helped me to see what some of my issues I was having even in it. You know, it's like, well, I guess that's what I am, you know, sort of thing, you know. But that you're describing now, that you were thinking, watching it all. What is the what are we doing? You know, there is something about activism and taking action, and you do have to step in and advocate, and there's a value to it. And at the same time, if it's just to do a certain kind of action, I mean, that's all it is, and it's not really going to bring about transformation.
It shows even right there, though, that is, it brings about transition and accepting it, transforming. Even that consciousness of you saying, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, it
I mean,
lights it in one kiddo's eyes or all of our experience, really.
Yeah.
It is honoring a different, inviting a different conversation to happen, coming back to the circle, full circle.
I guess I was kind of torn, you know, at the time I had a boyfriend who's now a retired major for the United States Army, and his policy was, we have to be making this much $1,000 per year, and we need to have this, and we have to have, so I was kind of like getting pulled in this way that I was supposed to fit into this little thing, and then I'm seeing this over here, and now, after what I've been through the last few years, I realize there's just some people that don't have the time that they could do something like that and do that on behalf of other people that would say, I'm going to support you to go and do this thing. And I couldn't really put it all together. And now I've been able to go back and read like news clippings of things that went on then and see that there was a result. There was awareness raised of some of these things, and there continues to be. And so that's kind of what made me start, you know, in my project, kind of like going back to that time and thinking about it, thinking about the things that I saw and what I heard and where I was and who was there.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just that one little event, that one little march. It kept going after them, after they were all gone, doing something else. Other people kind of took up the cause or whatever.
Do you see a direct trail to where you're working now?
It,
Just opening up more and more, or how did what you're working on now transpire to be?
well, I had lost touch with Max for a long time because he was married and, you know, he had a family and all of this, and my life took all these different twists and turns, but
You're way across the country from me.
yeah, a long ways across the country, but I was, my life took me in so many different strange places, and then I ended up going to trucking, and this horrible experience happened, and I was not on speaking terms with anyone else in my family, and I was desperate to talk to somebody else. I knew that he had impacted my life in a lot of ways. He makes me think, and that's what it is about him that I've always loved the most, is that he makes me think about things in a deeper way, and I needed to kind of, I guess, recharge myself in a positive way. I told him all about the whole trucking thing, and he was a little dumbfounded. And
It was amazing to me that you were driving 18-wheelers. I watch these little movies, trucks around, and I think, holy moly.
for me, it was like I loved the job so much, and they were trying to take it away from me, and I had to fight for it because I was so depressed before that I couldn't bear thinking about going back to this very dark place. So it's sort of a matter of survival for me, and I knew there was other people like me. So when he said, you know, and he listened to the whole story, we were in Starbucks over, I think, in Brentwood, and he said, what can I do? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, for me, it was just to get it off my chest, to tell somebody that I could trust, the whole dirty underbelly of it all. But I said, you know, I've been thinking about writing it, and so I did. And he read the things that I wrote, and he kind of watched and made a few phone calls on my behalf, and he was somebody that I could call up, and when he said that it didn't sound right to him too, then I know I wasn't crazy.